that time of year right now where I go and get my annual checkups. And as part of those checkups, I do my medical checkup. I do my dental checkup. Actually, that's twice a year. But then in addition to that, I do a life checkup. And the life checkup is basically asking myself the question, on the path I'm on, am I going to be happy with myself when I get to the end of that path? So basically, what I believe is until you know that you're on the right path, how fast you're going down that path doesn't matter. It's far more important to figure out the path than to get there faster. In fact, speeding down the wrong path is absolutely counterproductive because then you've got a whole bunch of repeating things on the correct path that you want to be. And so that's why it's very important for us to consider these path questions on a regular basis and make sure we're actually on the right path. In fact, I would argue that there's nothing more important in your life than figuring out the path that you should be on. Now, there's lots of paths. There's spiritual paths. There's physical paths. There's career paths. There's service paths. There's family paths. There's all of those. And each one of those deserves its own checkup. And the key thing is this. You don't necessarily have to know exactly where you're going with it. In fact, oftentimes at the beginning of that journey, we don't know. We know that we're moving to California. We don't necessarily need to know whether we're going to La Jolla or Hollywood or wherever. At least if you know the general direction so that at least you're going west. Because oftentimes you will make course corrections and refinements as you're starting to go down that path. You don't need to know every single detail. You just have to be going in the right direction for the path. And what I've learned over the years is that if your heart is questioning you, you should listen. Now, as I say that, I totally recognize that what your heart is questioning you about is really important. So if it's your fears, that's not necessarily saying you're on the wrong path, because many of us have fears that we're fighting all the time, and you can be totally on the right path and still have fears. That's not your heart telling you you're on the wrong path. Secondly, your failures are not necessarily telling you that you're on the wrong path. Almost all of us experience failure after failure after failure, or at least what we consider to be a failure. It can be a launch that we thought was going to do 10,000 that does 1,000. That's not a failure. That's a learning experience in that process. So I encourage you to ask yourself some questions as a part of your life checkup. So I'm going to give you a few questions here. And so that you know, all this comes out of a conversation that I had earlier today with somebody where we were talking about this very subject. What is the right path for this particular person? So questions that I think you should ask yourself. First off, is that really what I want? So I'm on this path, and when I get there, is that really what I want? Is that really exactly a definition of what I want to be? But again, it could be that California is your mission. You don't know where in there, so it can be at least directional. But if you're going to get specific, you better ask yourself if that specific thing is true. So is it true to who I really want to be? So if you have a great deal of love and service in your heart and you want to be helping people, and that path that you're taking on is a very analytical, path that is going to have you be focusing on investing or something like that, that may not be consistent with who you really want to be. Next, does it contribute to what's next? So oftentimes the end of that path is not necessarily the end of our life. Some of us are going to reach the end of that path, and then we're going to be asking ourselves, okay, what am I going to do with the next 40 years of my life? And you don't necessarily have to know right now where you're going to be when you're 97. But the question that I have is, does the end of the path that you're currently on move you closer to the path that you want to be on when you're 97? You don't even necessarily need to know that path at 97, but at least you should know directionally you're going into the right place. Next, is it my genius work? Is it that things that I do so well that I can literally walk into the room and just do that thing, and it's amazing the results that happen as a result of that? It's something that brings me huge joy. It's something that's easy for me. It's something that I wake up and I'm excited to do. All of those elements are this part of this concept of genius work. And if you're not working in your genius work area, you're likely not to be as happy as you'd like to be. Next, does that path put me on a place where I'm blessing the world? Personally, I believe everyone should have this as part of their consideration. Will the world be better as a result of me doing what I'm moving down the path to achieve? Next, is this something I'm going to be proud of on my deathbed? I used to call it the grandma conversation. Is it something that if I explained this to my grandma, that should say, Don, I'm so proud of you for doing that? Now, if any of the answers to any of those are no, you may want to make a change. It can be a course correction, a slight change. It can be a full correction where you're no longer going to California, you're going to Minnesota. Whatever it is, I just don't want you to spend the next 15 years going down a path that you're not going to like in the end. I invite you to think about that. Would you let me know your thoughts about this? Because if you're not on the right path, the speed you're going down that path is not important. By the way, just one small comment. If this is one of the things that you're wondering about right now, one of my very good friends, Jeff Walker, is doing a program right now that for the next several nights, he's going to be doing a presentation where he'll be talking somewhat about this path kind of discussion, as well as what the steps are that you should take along that path. If you're interested, go to productlaunchformula.com. I get nothing from you going to this. So go to productlaunchformula.com, sign up there, and you'll learn about how you can attend those and be part of a really powerful process of figuring out your path and figuring out how to get down that path. All right. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. This is Don Crowther saying, just go do this stuff.